Hello YouTube, Ian here of Bolt Industries. I'm super excited today to show you my latest and greatest piece of circuit board art. I call this one Algorithmic Precipitation. What this is a custom printed circuit board that I designed and I had made and I assembled it here. And if you're familiar with my artwork, or if you go check it out at iandunart.com, you'll notice there's a common theme, and that is that it's all nature and technology mixed. That was a coincidence at first, I'd say, but a couple of years ago I learned that there's this prediction of the future called the singularity, and that totally kind of reflects what my artwork was originally themed with. It's all kind of an exploration into what this singularity world of the future might look like. The singularity, if you're not familiar with it, is the prediction that artificial intelligence in the year 2029 is going to exceed human intelligence, and then the growth of technology will be exponential from there. And we'll have things like brain implants will be the next big milestone after that, I think. And then we'll have a biological brain and an artificial intelligent brain. And it sounds crazy, but we're already seeing signs of it happening. There's companies making brain implants to make people able to talk that otherwise couldn't through synthesized speech, or control a mouse for someone that doesn't have their hands. And that's just the beginning. So whether this post-singularity world is good, bad, ugly, scary, whatever it is, it fascinates me. So this piece of art is kind of an exploration into what that might look like on a city intersection like this. So no matter what, printed circuit boards are hard to photograph, especially black, or video for that matter. There's always a glare. It's just how it is. So you can see down at the bottom here, there's my pedestrian. That lady was the hardest part of this to make. She's just walking across the city streetscape, and all these little raindrops are falling down on her umbrella. And notice these circuit board traces coming down from the sky here. Originally I was going to put a cloud there, but I decided they looked better just coming down from the sky like they're raining down. And otherwise it's just a normal city streetscape. But in the post-singularity world, I don't know. When we unleash nanobots into Mother Nature, maybe little green raindrops aren't crazy. It sure sounds crazy now, but either way, it looks cool in a piece of art like this. So in this video, I'm going to explain step by step how I did this. I'll go through Inkscape and KiCad and assembling the board, and I'll explain each step along the way. So I had to order 5 of these. That's the minimum order quantity from the board house. So I've got 5 assembled ones here. And how I'm going to do this, I'm going to call it a limited edition of 100. I could make 1,000 of them if I wanted to, but I've got other ideas that I want to move on to. So I'm willing to make 100 of these. Each one will be numbered and signed, of course. And the first 5, they came out pretty much darn near perfect, but I can always make some improvements. So I'm going to do that. So the first 5, I'm going to put them up in my Etsy store. I'll put a link in the description, and the price will be the best on those first 5. And once those sell out, I'll order more, but I'm definitely going to have to raise the price. And I hope to get the attention of an art gallery down the road too. So if these end up in an art gallery, the price will go up more then, of course, and you won't be able to get them on Etsy. So if you want to get your hands on one, now is likely the time. So all that said, let's go through this step by step, and I'll show you how I made this. So this is just a test circuit board that I made. I really wasn't too confident in my ability to code this, and that was a lot of why I was thinking about how to approach this for a 1.5 or 2 years. And I built this little board just as a test to see if I could actually code it before I paid for that giant gold-plated circuit board, because that was expensive. So yeah, this was the test. I coded this with AI. I really can't take credit for much more than the prompt, and holy cow, it came out cool. A 1.5 years ago, I don't think AI was really capable of writing a little Arduino sketch like this, but today, oh man, it brings things in reach that were totally out of the question for me before, this being one of them. This rainstorm has like 4 different intensity levels even, so this is the heaviest intensity. It'll do this for like 2 minutes, and then it'll go to light intensity, and then moderate intensity, and then heavy intensity, and then down to light, and so on and so forth. And it's randomly generating every raindrop. Those aren't pre-programmed. I'm pretty dang happy with how this turned out. I think it looks like a believable rainstorm. So with that, I think I'll show you KiCad. No, Inkscape. So this is Inkscape, and I'll show you real quick how I drew this image. So this right here is the vector graphic that I imported into KiCad, which is my circuit board CAD software for designing circuit boards. Not so good at drawing images because that's not what it's meant for, so I drew this image in KiCad and then imported it to Inkscape. And I tell you what, this took me a year and a half of thinking about it and strategizing and researching and thinking about it some more to figure out how to even approach this. And finally, what I settled on, I found this image that was kind of close to what I had in mind. It's just an AI generated image. And so I imported this into Inkscape, and I used the pen tool here, and I traced every line on every one of these buildings just as a starter point. I didn't really end up keeping very much of the original outline of these buildings here. I modified it pretty heavily once I finished tracing it. So I could have imported this right into KiCad, but that really wasn't what I wanted. It wouldn't have done very well with that anyway. Like for example, this sunset, that would have ended up being a big splotch. These windows would have just been little specks. So I redrew all those windows myself. Those are all little squares that I tweaked to have just the right angle to give them the depth that they needed. I left the side of this building blank. I was going to do something else with that didn't end up working out, so I ended up just drawing windows on it once I got it into KiCad. This cloud I put here, I thought that would look cool, but there just wasn't room for it in the end. I ended up with the circuit board traces just coming from the top, and I think they look cooler that way. This building over here, that one I pretty much hand drew. I started with, it was kind of inspired by this image, but I really didn't use any elements of that. I just ended up hand drawing it. The street light I hand drew, and this pedestrian, this lady, that took the longest out of all of this. There was just no way I could find an image on the internet that was anywhere close to what I was looking for to even start with. And I'll admit, I never made it past elementary school, or past stick figures in elementary school art class, so this was a struggle for me. But I got through it. These are all AI generated images, and I think maybe that one's an image of something else that I tried to use. Those ones just didn't work out. But anyway, I ended up just looking at lots of images of people walking in that, like from the profile, which was hard enough to find, and then hand drawing all the little lines myself. Holy cow, that was hard. The hair is the exception. The hair is AI generated, and I imported that into Inkscape and converted it to I did a trace bitmap to turn it into a vector. I couldn't have done that myself. That's just, I don't know, wouldn't even know where to start with it. The umbrella, hand drew that one. So anyway, that was the image that I imported into KiCad, which I'll show you next. So this is KiCad. KiCad is one heck of an open source printed circuit board design suite. And I remember in the early 2000s when I first switched to Linux, I'm pretty sure Ubuntu came bundled with KiCad, and all it could really do was make crude schematics. It was not what it is today, but today, oh my, it's a robust printed circuit board design suite. Highly recommend KiCad if you're looking at getting into this. So yeah, one thing I like about KiCad is that it has this feature, File, Import Graphics, and it'll import a vector graphic from Inkscape, where I can draw way more elaborate graphics than I can in a board CAD suite. So that's how I did this. I drew the cityscape in Inkscape and then imported it in here to KiCad. And then I made changes from there. One thing that's cool about KiCad, I used to be an easy EDA user, but I really, really like this feature. I can import a vector graphic from KiCad, and it imports it like board traces, so I can actually modify it in here. That one came in as a Bezier curve, however you say that. I don't want to leave that way. But anyway, I don't have to re-import the graphics every time I want to make a change. These circuit board traces here, it's just easier to get natural looking board traces in KiCad than it is in Inkscape. So I drew these in KiCad. They're supposed to look like circuit board traces raining out of the sky on this lady's umbrella. These LEDs, those are WS2812-2020s, meaning that their outline is 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters. They're little tiny ones. And they're addressable, so they're chained together in series, kind of. This LED in the top left is address 0, and then all the way down in the bottom right is address 220 something. And they're all controlled by this one microcontroller here, the Atmel 328PB, my favorite chip. You can compile for that, or write code for that chip in the Arduino IDE, which is how I do it. I'll make a future video on that workflow. That's a handy trick that I figured out, I think. I don't see anybody else doing it, but they should, because it's really effective to embed your microcontroller like that. But anyway, every one of these copper parts is a real circuit board trace, plated in copper, or plated in gold, I'm sorry. So once I imported all this, then I had to make the circuit work around it, which was another challenge. Like some of these LEDs, for example, I had to make this window part of the positive plane, because this 5 volts pad interferes. So I would have had to scoot that LED over otherwise. That took a whole lot of figuring out. I had to just reconfigure a few things about these buildings to make that work in a few cases. Or in a lot of cases I just used the window as the ground plane or the 5 volt plane. This pedestrian here, she's in the top silkscreen layer, which is normally used for like labeling components, what they are in the schematic. The hair has a lot of detail actually because it's a vector, but the way KiCad displays it when you zoom out looks like a yellow blob. It's kind of an art to look at this and picture how it's going to look in the end. This yellow, for example, is going to be white. Blue is a bottom copper layer. Red is a top copper layer. So it took me a while to visualize what these colors are going to look like in real life, because obviously they're not going to come out looking like that. So yeah, that's a rundown on the board. I guess I can quickly show you the schematic here. It doesn't look like much because there's not much to it. We've got all of those WS2812 LEDs chained together, and microcontroller, some decoupling caps, the programming header, a USB port for power, and these 2 little transistors here. I probably could have got away without these, but I put them in there just to be on the safe side. What they're doing is taking the binary signal out of the microcontroller and switching these LEDs off. That's the little flickering street light that's supposed to look like it's got a bad wire or something. And then these 2 are white LEDs for the lightning effect. So yeah, that's the rundown on KiCad. And with that, I think we'll move on to the next step, which is assembling the board. So here I'm just spreading solder paste into that stencil. That solder paste, it's about the consistency of toothpaste, I'd say. And that stencil has a little hole in it in every little spot where the board needs solder paste. So I'm just smashing it through with a putty knife. It's pretty easy stuff to work with, but there's a fine art to that, because apply too much and I'll have a bridge, apply too little and I have an open. So you got to very carefully get every little hole. Alright, so I've got the board in the pick and place machine. This machine is so fun to watch. What it's doing is picking up little tiny parts that are about the size of a grain of rice off of a spool, and it takes a peek with a camera to see the part's exact orientation, and then it offsets a little bit as needed and places the part in exactly the right place. That bright white light there, that's the camera. You'll see it in a second when I'll show you the camera's view on the little screen in the front of the machine. So it just picks up each part, sets it down. I just love watching this machine work. There's the view of the camera. You saw how that moved ever so slightly. That was the new part that it picked up and placed. I think this board has 230 something placements, and it'll take about 10 minutes to do that in this machine. I could make a few tweaks to make it go a little bit faster, but just getting it set up and running and placing all these parts without messing something up. It's easier to do that at half speed, which I think is what I've got it running at here. I think maybe on the next one I'll set it to pick those LEDs up with both heads, and that'll make it go twice as fast, and I could speed up the speed also. But mass production isn't really the goal here. I don't mind waiting a few more minutes for it. I just love watching this machine work. This is going to open up a whole bunch of other possibilities for cool art projects and other things that I can do right here in my office that would have been out of reach before. They're in lane number 1. That's the WS2812 2020 LEDs. Those are 2mm by 2mm, which is honestly kind of on the larger side as far as surface mount parts go. But that thing just picks them up with ease and puts them down in exactly the right spot. Alright, so this is done. Looks like it came out pretty good. The only thing is that it wasn't really worth it to put white LEDs into one of these feeder lanes. I just don't have any other project that needs LEDs or white LEDs, and this one only needs 2 of them for the lightning effect. So I'm just going to hand place these 2 white LEDs. Just like that. And now we'll put this in the oven. So this is my oven here. It's just a little bit small for this board, but I figured out a workaround. That's the drawer that would normally fit in the compartment here. And so I figured out if I take the drawer out, and I'll show you, I put some little pipe fittings in there to bring this board up to the same height that the drawer would hold it at. I wouldn't want it to go all the way down. So I'm just going to slide that in there very carefully. And I think it's actually a coincidence, or maybe I did it this way on purpose. It just barely fits in there. So I can cover it up with a piece of scrap printed circuit board. And press start and walk away. Alright, this just beeped at me, so it's done. Let's see what we got. This board actually fell on the floor midway through, so it wouldn't surprise me a bit if these LEDs toward the opening here aren't soldered. And there we go. There's this goop on there I noticed as I was putting it in. I think it came from the factory that way. And lo and behold, it looks like those did solder. So I'm going to use the Arduino IDE and flash the firmware, and knock on wood, we'll see if it works. I haven't got one to work perfectly yet. There's always one solder pad that I missed with the solder paste, and I end up having to hand solder it, which is not a big deal. I forgot to check the alignment of that microcontroller. I knew that was off. I'm gonna have to fix that. Not such a big deal. Yeah, came out pretty good. Alright, the moment of truth. I had to hand solder those top 2 rows of LEDs with my trusty hot air gun there. There was a few of them that weren't soldered. Had to fix that microcontroller. The alignment was a little bit off. I just heated it up with the hot air gun and pushed it over a little tiny bit with tweezers. And let's see if this works. If all these LEDs will light up, then this will be the first one that's worked on the first try. I think it's going to do it. Hey. Look at that, it works. And that's the finished product. All that's left is to put it in a frame. I hope you enjoyed watching how I made this. If you want to see more, you can check out my website at iandunnart.com, IANDUNN art.com. And if you would please like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it.